All right, so now we are now streaming. I want to welcome everybody to our Board of Trustees. This is a public hearing dealing with a zoning issue. We have on the screen the rules for folks who wish to speak. And Eddie, if you could walk them through how to do the call-ins and joining us, that would be wonderful.
Sure thing. If you're on your phone, you'll press *9 to raise your hand. And if you're participating on the computer using the participant panel, you can press raise your hand.
Okay. So with that, we'll do the call to order. Debbie, if you could, please.
Okay. Mr. Freeman?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
And Mr. Campbellis?
I believe he said here, but he's muted.
Muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here.
Okay.
It was like he was doing a mime. It was like,
Like,
Sorry.
okay.
pretty soon he's going to do one of these. Okay, if we could do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. And Nick, why don't you lead us in the pledge tonight?
Sure. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Nick. So just a few instructions from the chair from my handy dandy cheat sheet that Loretta reminded me I need to stay on. Anyone who wishes to speak during the public hearing, whether that be an applicant, a staff member, or the public, must be sworn in. We will allow the public to speak at the appropriate time during this hearing, following receipt of the staff report, presentation, and questions from the trustees. At this point, what I will do is I will do the staff who have to speak. I will go ahead and do the oath for both of you. And then I will do the oath again when we get to the open public comment, if that's okay. So Eddie and Loretta, I presume that's the two staff that will be speaking. Please raise your right hand and repeat, actually answer aye to these questions. Do you solemnly swear to affirm under penalty of perjury that you will tell the truth in these proceedings?
I do.
Okay. With that, I will open the public hearing. This is for case ZC 2021-001. It's an application for major modification to convert the present 96 condominiums units section to 56 single-family dwellings. And with that, I will turn it over to Eddie to begin the staff presentation.
All right, thank you. So the request is an application for a major amendment to the Glen Mary development plan to convert the present 96 condominium units to 56 single-family dwellings. The applicant is D.R. Horton, and the owner is presently Glen Mary Development, LLC. The property is currently vacant and is zoned Amelia PUD. As you can see, the proposal only pertains to the northern portion of the property. If you see the southern portion of Glen Mary Drive, a portion of the original development is already platted, and those are platted as single-family dwellings, and they're currently under construction. So everyone probably knows the vast majority of the history here. The preliminary development plan was approved by the Amelia Planning Commission in 2019. In July of 2019, the council accepted the approval for 65 single-family and 120 multifamily condominium units. In November 2019, the village dissolved. And from there, we went through a couple different iterations. In March 2020, the Zoning Commission approved the final development plan, which was substantially similar to that approved by the Amelia Village. In September 2020, the BZA approved a request to classify the applicant's condominium to landominium conversion as a minor modification. In January, the Claremont County Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the applicant's current proposal to convert landominiums to now single family. And in March, early March, the Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval of the applicant's proposal based on the draft PUD agreement and plans. So just some brief highlights here. 27% of open space is proposed along with walking trails and picnic tables. Dwellings are ranging from 1,635 square feet to approximately 2,546 square feet. The lots range from approximately 5,800 to 13,000 square feet in area. Keeping in mind there are a couple deficiencies here by the resolution standard. However, the applicant has worked with staff and the Zoning Commission to rectify a number of those items in requesting waivers and that sort of thing. The properties are proposed to be served by Clermont County Sewer and Water, while stormwater is proposed to be managed by an on-site storm detention facility, all to be managed by the HOA. Approximately 883 feet of Snapdragon Drive and 855 feet of Virginia Lane will be dedicated public. Sidewalks are proposed on both sides of the street, will be maintained by the HOA, and the trails proposed in the active open space are also going to be maintained by the HOA. Now, the applicant has stated that all phases should be complete in approximately 2024. As you can see, the northern section that is kind of has like a gray background to it, that is the current proposal area. And this is the land dominium layout of 96 units that's currently approved. Now, the proposed layout, as you can see, 2 cul-de-sac streets here with 56 single-family dwelling units. Just a closer in. To the east of the site here, you can see the open space labeled area. That is where predominantly where the picnic tables, active open space, and trails will be located. This is the existing southern phase. That is, again, all single-family units. That is, portion of it is recorded and undergoing construction, and the rest is presumed to be underway shortly. This is the landscape plan for the proposal. And the architectural renderings showing 1,800 and 2,300 square foot housing options. And this is the draft PUD agreement that was agreed upon between staff, Zoning Commission, as well as the applicant. We went line by line in the Zoning Commission's public hearing. The first section include the 5 waivers that were necessary, which include lot area, due to the lots being a number of lots being under 10,500 square feet, lot width, wherein a number of the lots are under the 60-foot width minimum, the side yard setbacks, proposed 5-foot minimum, 13 total on both sides. The applicant would have been required to comply with an 8-foot setback. They also were recommended to be granted that waiver. The open space deficiency minimum required is generally 35%, 27% is proposed, and the maximum gross density exceeds 2 dwellings per unit per acre at 3.41 proposed. Keeping in mind, of course, that the land dominium proposal on the same acreage was 96 units, so significantly higher than what is proposed. Those five waivers were granted. Some of the significant takeaways are the commitment to build proposed homes to a higher standard, wherein the facades may not exceed 10% vinyl and the side and rear of the structures may not exceed 50% vinyl coverage, was agreed upon by the applicant. The trail network will be completed, and and additional plantings along the northern side of the site of eastern red cedar, green giant arborvitae, spring grove arborvitae, and so forth are also proposed. And so there were additionally 15 general conditions also included. Now let's go through those really quick. The 50-foot access easement is to be granted to the township and is going to be maintained by the HOA until such time that it is granted. If you remember, that 50-foot access easement is on the northern side of the site, runs parallel to State Route 125. Shape files are required for easements proposed so that we have a digital record of those. The wedge area created by the proposed easement is to be maintained by the HOA. Fire access surface is to be designed in conjunction with review and recommendation from the fire chief. Open space and trails to be owned jointly or in common by the owners of the building lots, with maintenance provided through the HOA. The PUD shall link to the single-family residential use table, predominantly single-family uses, and accessory structure regulations. The applicant shall construct the external adjacent sidewalks directly connecting to the development. Applicant shall plant a buffer along the 50-foot easement. Trees removed adjacent to 3590 Hyatt shall be replaced on a 1-for-1 basis. This was also agreed upon by the applicant, with the applicant. Let's see here. A Knox compatible bollard is to be placed at the fire access along the Nagley intersection. This is to prevent vehicular traffic from going between the Glenmary development and Nagley Drive. So you wouldn't be able to drive through as a cut through. A 20-foot, and also the fire department would have access to remove that bollard in the event that they need to get in for emergency purposes. 20-foot wide green space buffer is to be added along lots 83 through 85, 108 in the corner of 107. Street trees present, but on-lot vegetation not present. This is just a resolution requirement for on-lot landscaping that the applicant was not showing in their plans. Lots 111 through 124 shall access onto Virginia Lane. Parking is to be restricted to one side of the street, and the applicant must comply with all federal, state, and local regulations. This is the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. Now, at their March 2nd public hearing, the Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval of the foregoing case based upon the draft PUD agreement, which we just read, dated March 30th, 2021. Staff has found that the major modification proposal is generally supported by the land use plan and zoning resolution. This is supported by 5 objectives and conflicts with 2. Staff recommends the Board of Trustees consider approval of the foregoing proposal, accepting the Zoning Commission, Planning Commission, and staff's recommendation and staff reports to pass a motion to approve the major modifications with the following conditions. The waiver development agreement and enclosed conditions are hereby approved, and the remaining items of concern shall be resolved in a manner deemed appropriate by the Board of Trustees. I included just a general draft motion here, if you'd like to use this as well. And staff and the applicant is here. I don't know if the applicant has a presentation, but staff can answer any questions if you have any.
I have one question, Eddie. I was in on that zoning commission meeting when this was discussed. Can you go back to item number 1 of the conditions regarding that easement on the north end? Refresh my memory on what that, just kind of refresh my memory on that item, if you don't mind.
Yes. So that item, that 50-foot easement there, let me get a good, okay. So on this plan here, on the northern side, you see lots 111, and then going east, they go to 124 there.
Mm-hmm.
Just to the north of that is that 50-foot easement, and it runs from the roundabout and heads all the way down to what we call the Wendy's or the Kroger site there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a holdover item from the original Amelia approval, and the purpose is to fulfill the Amelia Parkway design as an alternative to all traffic kind of going through 125. So to be built in the future as kind of the Amelia Parkway that's in their land use plan. But that easement is proposed to be maintained by the HOA until such time that it is, of course, developed
In its final form.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. That's what I recalled. Thank you very much. Just to clarify.
No problem.
right, so I'm sorry, I missed that last little part. We are gonna maintain that easement after it's developed, the township?
If it's dedicated as a public right of way, like if it were to develop as a public road, that's what's illustrated in the plan. Now, theoretically, there are circumstances where it could be a private road. Theoretically, it could just be a drive, like a cross access drive. It doesn't have to be a public road, but that's kind of what the plan seemed to envision it being a public road, and that's why it was kind of dedicated. It's more or less the flexibility that's offered to give those commercial lots to the north there an alternative access, so that they don't all have curb cuts along 125. So they would, so they theoretically would front onto that access, and they would have the street light at the intersection of 125 and Glenmary there, turn left or right.
Okay.
And just to clarify, the conditions that you had in the, not the conditions, but the section where you talked about basically the exemptions that were granted on this property based on zoning code. Again, to refresh my memory, this was a situation where Amelia's zoning code didn't necessarily match up to our zoning code, but this was already a completed process. And so in order to make the zoning match up, we had to give some allowances. Is that correct?
Yeah, partially, yes. And a lot of the
It's a nice way of saying you're wrong, right?
No, well, you're right. No, you're right. I mean, if we do like the Snopes thing, you're like mostly right,
Just one Pinocchio.
Yeah, right. No, like, for the most part, yes, there were some compliance items that came up because some of our standards were more strict, like some of the open space and things like that. And, you can only, it kind of comes down to squeezing the triangle peg through the square situation. And it's, that was a big factor in it. And so they worked to bring this proposal into compliance with our current regulations.
And I want to add that I was impressed by the caveat there whereby the elevations were only permitted to have a certain percentage of vinyl. I think that was an important change. So vinyl is generally, in my opinion, not a high-end, product. So I think that change was a step in the right direction. So good move there too.
Okay, so trustees, if you don't have any further questions or any discussion, then we can open it to public comment. And at that point, what I would do is I would offer at the beginning phase of the public comment, will allow both sides, people who wish to speak for, people who wish to speak against. At that point, then the developer can do their presentation if they have one. So with that, anybody who wishes to speak on the matter, either pro or con tonight, if you could unmute and please raise your right hand, and I will issue the pledge or the oath. Okay, who has unmuted at this point? I've got Mr. Paolo. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter tonight?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Doug
sir.
Smith, and I can see, this is Rick Paolo, my apologies for interrupting, but
No
both
problem.
Doug Smith and Mr. Ferrugia, I can see that are on the screen, and they have not unmuted. So they're
Okay.
obviously, there's Doug. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, excellent. All right. And okay, so I want to make sure that Mr. Ferrugia is he unmuted at this point, Mr. Paolo?
Yes, he's unmuted.
Okay. If you guys could raise your right hands, and I will do the oath. Do you solemnly swear to affirm under penalty of perjury that you will tell the truth in these proceedings?
I do.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I will, Mr. Paolo, are you leading the discussion, Mr. Smith or Mr. Ferrugia?
No, Mr. Chairman, my participation here merely is to offer any analysis that may be needed. Either Mr. Smith or Mr. Ferrugia will be leading the presentation.
Okay, and I will lead it to you folks.
Okay. A little confusion there. Good evening. My name is Doug Smith. I'm with McGill Smith Puncheon, a civil site engineer for the project. We're excited about this new design and modification. I'd like to tell you that this phase 3 and 4, the street specifications, street widths, the cul-de-sac radii, the lot widths, and area are similar and exact to the approved phase 2, phase 1 and phase 2 of the development that's currently under construction. We did offer to be more compliant with Pierce's Township's side yard requirements. Phase 3 and 4 will have a little larger side yard for a total of 13 feet, 8 and 5, where phase 1 and 2 for the original approval had a side yard setback requirement of 10, 5 and 5. So we tried to work as much as we could and still keep a layout that was consistent with phase 1 and 2. We feel that this layout and this plan modification provides better, more usable open space around the pond. It can be, better access and can be enjoyed by the community compared to the other layout. And just to confirm or let you know, we concur with the 15 conditions. We don't have any issues with those. And basically, we're here to answer any questions or address any comments you may have.
All right, Renee, you have your hand up. Trying to unmute you, but I think you'll have to unmute yourself. All right, Renee, you're unmuted. Is your comment related to this?
Yeah,
Okay, well then I need to swear you in.
I did. I swore in when you did that, but if you want to do me again, you can do it again.
Let's just do it again so you're on the record. Okay.
All right.
Do you solemnly swear to or affirm under penalty of perjury that you will tell the truth in these proceedings?
Yes, I do.
So I was reading that oath, and I gotta confess, I should be wearing my glasses, so I had a tough time reading it this time. Arm isn't long enough to read that. So go ahead, Renee.
A couple questions. The first, since you brought it up, I guess is it Mr. Smith?
Yes.
The pond, is that going to be a pond or is that going to be a catch basin?
It's going to be a pond. It'll be service two purposes. It'll have water in it all the time. It'll be a retention, detention basin. It'll also provide for stormwater management, but for looks and aesthetics, it's a pond.
Okay. The other question, I don't know if this would be to you guys or Eddie to you. This has been changed. We're going on the fourth time that this has been amended. Is this a normal amount of changes for one subdivision or whatever the case may be? First it was condos, then condominiums, now, and before that it was something else when it was brought to Amelia. I just wonder if this is a normal thing that it's been changed so many times in just less than 2 years.
I can comment on that. And Mr. Smith, Mr. Ferrugia, and Mr. Paolo, if you want to interrupt, my perspective is that, it is in a sense abnormal, but I think it's due to abnormal circumstances. So I don't think it was, I think that there were a lot of mitigating circumstances that kind of came up with the dissolution. And then I think that there were some unique financing circumstances that came up. So it wasn't like self-inflicted sort of thing as much from my perspective, but there was no regulatory issue from our perspective. I don't know if you gentlemen want to speak to that.
I'm in agreement with Eddie. I mean, when Amelia dissolved and then we had to go to the township, that was a meeting. There was just that created several meetings, and then the federal, what was it, Fannie Mae, they changed the loan requirements of on condominiums, and that was a big impact where we the builder DR Horton for finance reasons wanted to go for a landominium, so that required a change to the plan. So I think just switching from municipalities and the finance issue are really the two major culprits for having excessive meetings on this.
And then I guess another question, you said that this area is going to have picnic tables and stuff like that. So is that going to be used for the entire area, or is that just an HOA and for that specific area only? Is it going to be accessible by all residents or just those who live there?
It'll be accessible by all residents, all 4 phases of the development.
I meant like, I don't live there. So if I want to go have a picnic lunch, am I going to be allowed to do that? Or is it strictly for those who live in that subdivision?
The intent is for it to be just for the residents of the subdivision.
Okay. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. No one else seems to be speaking up. So at that point, I guess we can ask for a motion to close the public hearing or continue it. Which would you gentlemen like to do?
Move to close.
Okay, we have a motion to close. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Motion to close, and a motion to second. Debbie, if you could do the roll call.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes. Now we've exited the public hearing, but now it's time for us to do some deliberation for the trustees and discuss the motion that we need to make. And the motion is on the screen right now. It would be ZC 2021-001. Eddie, can you walk us through that? You're muted, Eddie.
I was just testing everybody.
So we could read your lips.
One unique component of this is that so you have to read the recommendation report from the zone. So whoever makes the recommendation has to read the zoning commission and planning commission's recommendations into the record. It's just kind of a quirk of the PUD. I can go back to those. I included them on the PDF as well, but otherwise you have the option to approve, deny, or approve with conditions the application. So that's kind of the general.
One thing that I'm concerned about is that I feel like it perhaps should be instead of a motion, we should probably be doing this in a resolution. And Loretta or Eddie, please educate me in a different way. But it just kind of feels like rather than doing this as a simple motion, we should do it as a resolution.
You're right. So your motion tonight, the recommendation is that you would make a motion for staff to craft the resolution for your next meeting. Yep.
And Eddie, those criteria based on your bullet point number 2 here, and you're going to make those available to us so that we can essentially read them out for purposes of making this motion.
So as far as findings, it would be up to the trustees to determine on the basis for which they want to approve. So if you are in agreement with the planning commission, zoning, and staff, or maybe just the staff report and included findings, you can make that part of your motion. Based upon the staff report and presentation, we recommend approval, denial, or approval with modification.
Well, wait a minute. I thought we're recommending the drafting of a resolution to then approve.
Yes, exactly.
So that, okay. What are the remaining items of concern that you mentioned? Can you clarify that a little bit better?
That was just a generic PowerPoint item in case you guys had something just as a reminder, if you had something that came up in discussion, to make sure you batch that in with the recommendation that's already in place. So if there was an item that came up that you want that's still unresolved, it's just kind of a reminder, like a bookmark.
So you don't have any perceived reservations that you're holding tight to your chest and we have to kind of pry out of you?
Yeah, I don't. Everything in the PUD agreement kind of covers the items that I had reservations on. But if they comply with the PUD agreement, I think staff is satisfied.
Well,
So I'm sorry.
no, I mean, I think I'm clear on everything. My only thought would be, just for what it's worth, is that relative to what's going on and relative to the area and relative to what it was with the land dominiums and the circumstance with them having moved through stuff with the village and now us, I'm probably inclined to figure this one out. But I would like to mention that with the caveat that if this were at a different time or a different part of the township, I'm not sure how excited I'd be with the waivers on density and the waivers on setbacks and the small area that, just for the record. I mean, I think it's a circumstance, a unique circumstance as far as I perceive it.
I would agree with that, Nick. I think those concerns were echoed in the zoning commission meeting too. But I think they recommended proceeding, just as you suggested, and Eddie, just based on the pre-existing circumstances of the Amelia Village PUD and so forth.
And I mean, I know this is maybe a little unfair, but as far as the setbacks and all of those issues, how are they? How does this project compare to, say, Klein Station? Do you know, Eddie? I mean, I know that project was out of the barn before, Pierce, that became part of Pierce. So,
Right.
Is that consistent? In other words, this zoning is consistent with, this approach is consistent with the other projects that came before it with setbacks.
I'd say it's fairly close. I think that this project is offering obviously there's a range, but for the most part, the big difference would be the houses in this development appear to be larger. Like the minimum is a higher threshold. Some of the product in Klein Stations, it's a smaller dwelling. And the lots, I believe, I haven't done a complete thorough comparison, but for the most part, anecdotally, it does seem like the lots in Glenmary tend to be a little bit larger than the Klein Station.
Larger than Klein Station.
Yeah, a little bit, I believe. And I haven't done a complete comparison of it, but I trying to rack my brain based off of the permits that we've issued in Klein Station, it does seem. Yep.
Right. So this one won't be, it won't be out of kilter with the rest of the community and the feel of the rest of the community. So it's going to be, similar lot setbacks as what currently exists. So it's, apples to apples to some degree.
I think that you could say that this is somewhat enhanced. It certainly has some green space requirements that probably did not apply to the earlier developments.
Right. Now, were those inclusions that we urged, or were they pieces that were part of the previous PUD that just remained in as part of our agreements?
So a couple of the major key differences would be the architectural standards, which was a higher standard that we all agreed to, as well as the active open space. So the trails, the picnic tables, that sort of thing. Those are components that were not included in the initial. initial phase.
Okay. And then the trees and, the type of features, the green features, those were included based on the negotiation, or they predated the negotiation?
Yeah, the additional plantings and buffers, those are also from our regulation.
Okay. Because Nick, I agree with you that moving forward, I think giving a lot of waivers is not generally something I like to do. And sticking to the zoning code from, the eastern side of the township to the western side of the township, all the way to the north and south. I like that consistency. So moving forward, this is not ideal, but for the moment, and given the unique circumstances that we found ourselves in, and I think that this works. It's actually, I can remember way back when we were actually in person in meetings and this subject came up, and we were discussing it, and we mentioned something about negotiating with the township and making it, fit in nicely with our zoning code. So I have to give credit to, Mr. Ferrugia, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Paolo for actually for doing that with the township and trying to make those improvements and changes that we wanted to see included. So I thank you for that.
I agree. It's an important distinction, but it seems like from what I can see, a win-win considering the circumstances.
Correct. The other thing is, will all of these changes be included in the final planning document so that it's serialized and agreed to?
Yes. Yep. So you're if you were to proceed with an approval, for example, that approval would necessarily include a PUD agreement that has to be approved as part of the PUD.
Okay.
Yep,
So
so
that would be included.
Yes.
Okay. So that would be included. That just happens automatically based on us moving tonight to recommend staff to draft the resolution.
Yeah. So if you accept the zoning commission's recommendation, you would be accepting the draft PUD agreement. Now, if you disagreed or if you wanted to modify, for example, you would need to draft whatever those modifications to the PUD agreement are.
Right. Okay. Well, with that, do you have any further questions, guys?
So Eddie,
Uh-oh.
go ahead, Nick.
No, go ahead, Pete.
Just a mechanical question again, Eddie, second bullet point, based on, this is where, as a part of our motion, we would indicate based on, as you said, the findings or recommendations of the county zoning commission, our local zoning commission, and report of staff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. If you were in agreement. Yep.
If we were in agreement, right? Those three things, essentially.
Yes.
And to be clear, this is contingent upon these detailed itemizations that were recommended by the zoning commission be included in what document moving forward? How do we cement these details to ensure that they get done?
The PUD agreement.
Okay.
And I'll bring that back up here. So this here is the draft PUD agreement, and this is the governing document where 3-4 years from now, sort of thing, as a home is built or someone builds a garage, all those sorts of things. This is the document that we refer to with regard to the different regulations that were approved.
All right. So if I were to make a motion, I'd make a motion to accept the recommendations of the zoning commission and draft a resolution consistent with the additions to the PUD agreement.
Yes.
I will make that motion.
I was going to say, did you just do that?
I just like to be as vague and weird as possible.
Got to bring it in from the side, right?
Nick, can you say that again, please?
No, he can't. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's what I was. So I'm making the motion to accept the recommendations of the zoning commission and proceed with drafting a resolution consistent with the recommended additions to the PUD agreement, or contingent on the recommendation of the recommendations being made part of the PUD agreement.
Proceed to draft a resolution in what? I'm not that fast, guys.
A resolution, given it is consistent, contingent on the additions, recommended additions being added to the PUD agreement.
Okay.
Can you read that just so I'm, Debbie, whenever you're done, can you read it back just so I, so,
Thanks,
just
Pete.
so I'm clear.
I know, I probably have missed some wording here. Nick, motion to recommend to accept the zoning commission's
Recommendations.
recommendation to draft a resolution contingent upon the recommendation of the PUD agreement.
Contingent on the added recommendations being made part of the PUD agreement.
The recommendation of what now?
Contingent on the added recommendations. Added recommendations being made part of the PUD agreement.
There we go.
One last time, Debbie, whenever you're done, just so, sorry, I want to.
I'm going to have Nick type it up and send it to me is what I'm going to do. Okay. Nick, motion to recommend to accept the zoning committee to draft a resolution contingent upon the added of the PUD.
I think
Part
it's
of the
getting worse.
PUD agreement.
I think it's getting worse.
Yeah, that's not it.
Nick, get your typewriter out
Yes.
and start typing.
All right, so let's do this one more time.
Please.
So Nick made a motion,
Nick, okay, I don't do
Made a motion.
shorthand.
right? That recommending staff draft a resolution,
Recommending staff.
draft a
draft.
resolution.
That isn't what he said.
I know, we're working on that.
This
Okay.
is close enough. Alan's got it, I'm sure.
Draft the resolution.
Recommending staff to draft
Okay.
a resolution.
Now you're repeating that. I just
I
said
know,
that.
I know. I'm just making sure you got it.
Okay. Recommending staff to draft the resolution.
Accepting the recommendations of the zoning commission and planning commission.
The recommendations of the,
Well, why don't we do flip-flop that? I'm sorry. Planning commission and zoning commission. One's in county, one's local.
okay, say that again, Alan. To accept the recommendations.
From the planning commission
Planning commission
and the zoning commission.
and zoning commission. Okay,
Contingent upon
contingent upon
addition
addition.
Nick, how did you word the last part of that?
Contingent upon additional recommendations
Additional
being made part
recommendations.
of the PUD agreement.
Additional
Addition,
recommendations being included in the PUD agreement. Did I get it, Nick?
It was messy, but I think we got it.
I know, we did. I think we did. It was
The
teamwork.
one
It was
last-
teamwork.
The one last piece of housekeeping is,
Oh,
Mr.
hold
Chairman,
on.
if you can read the, you'll have to read the planning commission and zoning commission's recommendations in the official record as well. just to kind of close the book on.
You mean the Plan Commission, Zoning Commission recommendation, that the entire document that's here?
No, you could start at its regular meeting. It's just that one sentence, and then I have the zoning commission one as well.
Okay, can you make it larger? Because as I said, I didn't bring my glasses tonight.
Okay. This might take a second here because it's a PDF. So.
All right, so while you're doing that, Debbie, just one more time, read through the motion, and that way we can make sure we got it right, so that Pete may feel comfortable in making a second.
Okay, Nick motion to recommend staff to draft a resolution accepting the recommendation word is every other word, recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission contingent upon additional recommendation being included in the PUD agreement.
And those being those 5 or 6 items that you outlined, right, Eddie?
Man, it'd be so
Yes.
much easier if we were in person, because then I could just look at and then we could write it together right there.
I know.
The proof will be in the resolution. If there are any errors before you actually vote on the resolution, those should be corrected.
Okay, so Eddie, this piece that you want me to read, this has to precede the actual motion being passed, or it has to be after it?
It just has to be read into the official record.
All right, so blow it up for me, or I'll have to leave and get my glasses.
Okay.
This Planning Commission recommendation has to be in.
It just has to be read into the record.
Okay,
Into
so
the
you're
minutes.
going to get me a copy of this, correct, Eddie?
Yeah.
So,
it for you.
so is Eddie suggesting it be read aloud right now? And if so, I would recommend that Eddie read it.
Why do you want me to read it? Or do you want so that Alan can repeat it, or?
No, I
Because
don't
he doesn't
think
have
that
his
I
glasses.
think a staff member can
Yeah, he
read
has
it
glasses.
to the trustees and the trustees can affirm it.
Oh, okay.
And he
That might
doesn't
be
have
the
his
easiest thing.
glasses.
I'm trying to like get this thing loaded. My computer's going to explode, so we might have like 15 seconds
All right,
here.
so let's go ahead. You go ahead and read it.
Do you
We'll affirm
want
it.
this? Do you want this part of the motion, or do you want Pete to second this motion?
I
That
believe it can, I believe it can precede the motion, if I'm understanding this
So I
correctly.
need
It
Pete
just
to-
has to be done.
So I need
Yeah,
Pete.
it just the resolution just says it has to be read into the record.
Let's
So
read it. Well, Eddie's going to read it into the record, and then when he's done, Pete can second if Pete would like to second, and then we
Okay,
close out the hearing.
All right. At its regular meeting held Tuesday, January 26, 2021, the Claremont County Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of Pierce Township Zoning Map Amendment ZC 2021-001. And at their March 2nd public hearing, the Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval of zoning case ZC 2021-001, the Glen Mary major modification based upon the draft PUD agreement dated March 30th, 2021.
So now Loretta, you want us, the three of us, to affirm that, right?
I believe that's certainly sufficient because you're still going to have a resolution that will be completely detailing this on your next
Right.
agenda.
So let me do this. Let me call for, can I table your motion, Nick, just very briefly? The way I'm going to bring this in is I'm going to ask for a motion to affirm that these items were read into the record and will be part of the permanent record on this case. Can I have a motion to do that?
motion,
Second. Roll call, Debbie.
Mr. Campbell,
yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes. Now, let's go back to wordsmithing that motion, because it didn't working for me yet, okay? I know you want to get on to the rest of the meeting, guys, but let's just real quick, Debbie, just give it to me, give this piece to me slowly so we can rewrite it.
Okay. Nick motion recommendation to staff to draft resolution accepting the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commissions contingent upon additional recommendation being included in the PUD agreement.
Okay, so the first part, I'm going to change from recommending the staff to directing the staff.
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to change, I'm going to ask to change the first part, if this is a friendly amendment for Nick, from recommending the staff to directing the staff.
Okay,
So now you've lost one recommended.
okay. To draft a resolution accepting the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission contingent upon additional recommendation being included in the PUD agreement.
That the original recommendations from staff be included in the final PUD document.
Okay, say that again, Alan. Recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission contingent upon additional,
Inclusion of the additional recommendations
inclusion,
in the final PUD agreement.
okay, not, so,
Now just read it from the top and then see if it's acceptable to Mr. Kelly as a friendly amendment to his original motion.
Nick, what a motion. Mr. Nick motion directing the staff to draft resolution accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission contingent upon additional recommendation being in the final PUD agreement.
Yes, recommendations, plural on the last recommendation.
Okay, recommendations in the final PUD agreement.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay, that'll work. Now, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? With that, let's go ahead and do the roll call, please, Debbie.
Okay, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes,
Phew,
we got there.
we got it.
All right.
It was messy, but we got there.
Members of the board,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
yeah, members,
Thank you
thank
all.
you on behalf of the developer. We want to thank you for your consideration and especially to Mr. McCarthy for all of the diligent efforts that he had over these many, many months in getting it to this point to you. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Make us proud.
Okay, so with that, then we'll move into to other business. Loretta, do you have some other business you'd like to discuss?
I do not. I am unmuted. No, I do not. Thank you very much.
Okay, there's no other business. Then we'll open for public comment, open floor discussion. Oops, I just screwed up my computer.
Mr. Chairman, at some point, are we going to have a discussion about when to return to meetings in the town hall?
Mhm. Yeah, we're getting to the point where I think it's time for us to move back into the meeting room. But unfortunately, given that we still have the meeting size, the restrictions, it makes it difficult for us to actually have people in the room. But we could go into the room and broadcast from there. And so I think that's probably the next iteration of where we go. I was kind of hoping that the governor would start to relax some of the meeting requirements, but I haven't seen that happen yet. So when that happens, then everybody can come back in.
So maybe in the near term, a hybrid situation whereby we and our colleague staff would join in the meeting room and then others
Yeah.
could attend via Zoom.
Yes,
Citizens and okay. I would be supportive of that.
yeah, I think that's probably our next iteration, and we just have to talk about, how mechanically to pull that off, with, some of the restrictions. I think we can do it. we've done some meetings. We did have a budget meeting, 2 months ago where we
exactly.
were in person. And there are just
Right.
some things, there are times when we need to be in person, and budget, to me, I always kind of need to be in, I need to touch it and, scribble on a piece of paper. It's easier for me to describe when I'm with the rest of the colleagues, but anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I would say Eddie and I have had this conversation also. Whenever it's all of you, all of us with staff, that just about takes up the amount of people we're allowed to have in that room at one time.
Okay.
So that's our difficulty. But we had talked about the hybrid, as well as having some experimenting time with a consultant with our the company that we actually acquired the video equipment through, to provide a staff person who may work after hours in order to assist with the technology a few times with us, and also have as a backup person. So for instance, when staff has to make a presentation, it's hard to be running a meeting like that. It's difficult for Eddie already to run a Zoom meeting, but if you're running the Zoom meeting, live streaming, plus monitoring any other technical difficulties within that room with people present, that might be a situation that needs a second set of hands.
Yeah, I think we just really need to think it through as what's going to be the best outcome. I think, Alan, I agree with you in regards to work sessions and things. It helps to be in person and be able to talk about those things and just be more hands-on and communicative. But when you get a meeting setting where you may have Craig chiming in or me talking, or you can only have a certain broad range of that camera to catch certain people, then you have people talking that are off camera, and for the public, that may not be as good a situation. It's unfortunate we can't all just get in the room together with the public and everything, but just have to think about that.
And, I would love to, if at some point the governor relax the regulations and allow more people in the room, and that way we can avoid all that.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I'm much better looking this way, and I'm not very good looking this way.
Clear as mud.
Just saying. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Okay, with that, seeing none, next item is adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Debbie, could you repeat that motion for us, please?
Sorry, pants. Motion to adjourn. All right. Mr. Campbellis.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
And Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
time.
And thank you for everybody for attending tonight. It is important for us to have public involvement on all these things. So thank you very much. And have a great night.
Pete, I need you to sign some papers when you get a chance.
Okay.
And I will be sending out 6 meeting minutes to be everybody to check, please. And
then you'll have those all done before. Well, I can't sign them until after they're approved. So
approved, right? So, okay. So
Thanks,
I've got them all done except for this one.
okay, that sounds good.
I try to get them done.
I'm gonna have nightmares about that motion tonight.
Me too.
I'm gonna wake up in a cold sweat and just keep getting read back over and over again. I can't get out of it.
It's a motion loop. Just keep going through.
Oh, now let me read this again. Okay.
No, don't. We passed it. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a good
Good
night.
Good night.
Hey, guys.